Welcome to the Bite Size Brilliance Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. April Darley, and today we're going to talk about a little bit of a thought twister. What if what you think of as a problem is actually just a preference? Crazy, right? So recently I had a client come to me, and I'm going to call her Bonnie, not her real name, but Bonnie came to me because she's a high achieving woman, multiple six figures per year, well known in her industry, super friendly, but she's in her late 30s and Bonnie has never been married or had children. And she came to me and said, I want to work on this fear of commitment that I have. So I'm like, okay, what makes you think that you have this fear of commitment? And she went on to tell me her relationship history. And because I do the type of system I do, Bespoke Brain System, this works with three levels of consciousness: survival, emotion, and logic. I help a person identify on what level the problem, if there is one, actually exists. So Bonnie was telling me that she was afraid of commitment. So here's this little trick I do with a lot of my clients. Each level of your consciousness, each brain, survival, emotion, logic, operates almost like it has its own personality and motivation at times. So I ask a client to define the term or concept, in this case, commitment. So I asked Bonnie, define commitment to space aliens who've never heard of it before. They don't know what it means. What would you say it means? So Bonnie told me that it felt like restriction, putting her in a box. It felt really uncomfortable. So I want you to take note of that because that is Bonnie's emotional definition of a concept. So if she emotionally defined it as something undesirable, unpleasant, your brain is hardwired to avoid uncomfortable, unpleasant, or even painful things. So, what Bonnie saw as a fear of commitment isn't necessarily the problem. It's how she defined the concept that created an inner conflict in her own brain. And when your brain is confused, it will say no. Donald Miller of Story Brand fame is very common for saying this all the time. A confused mind always says no. So when you have these interconflicts in what your logical, emotional, and survival based definitions are, this is why we can have a perceived problem. So I'm going to build on this for you just a little bit. So Bonnie and I talked about this, and I pointed out how uncomfortable she felt with commitment. And she logically had not known this because she was falling under that spell of conditioning. You know, if you're a woman, you're supposed to get married, you're supposed to have kids, you're supposed to have a family. And according to society, that makes you, air quotes here, normal. And if you do anything beyond that norm, you're just not normal. And if your brain thinks that you are doing something emotionally that will cause you not to fit in, it activates that survival piece that will hijack the other pieces and take over, and you will feel as if you are about to be outcast, shunned, voted off the island. Then you will be alone, and then you will suffer and die. So, can you see the process that's going on underneath the surface? And so Bonnie just came to me with, "Oh, I'm dating, but I'm just not finding anybody because I think I have a fear of commitment." What was really happening in her brain is this deep fear about not fitting in, not being normal, and yet there's this other thing we have yet to talk about. And that is, I think we show three different versions of ourselves to the world. The first one is what I call the natural you. This is who you were born to be. It's your innate gifts, talents, preferences, strengths. Then we have the conditioned you. This is the you had to become to adapt to your environment to survive. And then there is the ideal you. So, the ideal you is quite possibly the you would have created if this conditioning had never happened. So, for example, someone who values freedom a lot, like Bonnie, was raised in a household where she had this role model of you're supposed to get married, you're supposed to have kids, you're supposed to do things a certain way. But Bonnie's hardwired for massive amounts of freedom. And so she saw this traditional model as being restrictive. And so a piece of her began to reject that model. And so she sees it consciously as something must be wrong with me because I'm not doing the thing I'm supposed to. Instead of honoring and recognizing her natural preferences and wiring that says, you know what, I need a lot of freedom. So, throughout this coaching session with Bonnie, we talked about is do you really have commitment as a problem? Because if you look at Bonnie's life, Bonnie's been in long term relationships. She makes friends easily. She's very friendly. She's had a long term history of not job switching. She's very loyal to jobs. She's had a few different, but she'll stay there for years. So that just doesn't smack of someone who's got a problem with commitment. So we had to tease that out. Bonnie's perceived problem of fear of commitment, lack of commitment, it wasn't actually a problem, but it was going against her preference. Because when Bonnie talked to me about what she really wanted from a relationship, it was someone that had a lot of freedom. It might mean separate houses, separate bank accounts, someone who travels a lot so that she has a lot of alone time. And there are definitely people that have those kind of relationships and they make it work. Gwyneth Paltrow, Tim Burton had that. Cheryl Lee Ralph and her husband have that. So there are definitely people out there that make it work. They might stay in separate bedrooms with their spouse or separate houses. They may never even choose to marry. So there are a lot of different ways to have a relationship that would be considered unconventional, but that doesn't make them wrong. It's just society has told you a story that this is what is accepted, and your brain has magnified that story to where if I don't do this thing, if I don't like this thing, then I won't be accepted, and then I'll be alone, and then I'll die. But none of that is actually true. You get to set the rules for your own life because it's your life. So, what you think of as a problem might actually be just a preference. And when Bonnie realized this, you could see her entire body relax. She started to get excited. She started talking about, yeah, there is nothing wrong with me. I just like what I like and I want what I want. And there is definitely someone out there whose idea of a relationship is very compatible to mine. So she, in one session, in the course of an hour, went from I have this serious problem to, you know what? I don't have a problem. I'm honoring my need and my value of freedom. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing with me. And my friends, when you get to that point, that is power. And what I try to do for my private one to one clients is take you through that journey. Because when you know your own identity, when you know what your own values, your preferences, the stories that you would like to create to make the ideal you come true, and to let go of all the BS conditioning you picked up along the way that is at odds with your actual wiring, that is true freedom. And that is true happiness. And sometimes you need a guide to get you there because you don't know what you don't know. And someone who's not in your head, like me, and has a gift for extracting the most relevant pieces of information can help you get there faster. So, just like Bonnie, you can go from really being down on yourself or hating yourself to excitement in a very short period of time. And that is possible when you know exactly the right pathways to hit, the right strings to pull in your head to make it all line up for you. And that's what I do with my private one-to-one clients in the Bespoke Brain System. So if this has hit a chord with you, if this resonated with you, you feel a little bit of Bonnie in your own life, then schedule a private consultation with me. It's a free phone consultation. It's 20 minutes, and I'm going to listen to what's going on in your life, what you might right now think of as a problem, and I'm going to show you how to run that problem through this system. And what you get out on the other side is something completely different because no one in the world thinks, acts, believes, or feels exactly like you. And this is why cookie cutter stuff doesn't always work, or it works a little. It's because when you know how you think, how all the connections work in your brain and how to work that system that is unique to you, then you can problem solve instantly on three different levels. And you can apply that system to every area of your life: money, love, energy, passion, purpose, everything. And that's what I do with my clients. So, again, if you would like to book your free consultation, go to aprildarley.com. There's the booking tab and schedule yourself a consultation so you can learn more about yourself and you can turn problems into preferences. All right, my friends, I'm wishing you so much love and success, and I will see you next week.